Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. My name is Jack Lugo, and today I bring to you another episode of The Comics of Bond. My guest is none other than Jeff Parker. Jeff is the writer behind Bond Origin, a new series from Dynamite Comics. For anyone not familiar with it, Bond Origin serves as a precursor to the Fleming books. It's all about Bond's time in World War II. We get to see his initial recruitment into military intelligence, as well as the very beginnings of Bond's naval career. So this is, an area of Bond's life that we as Fleming fans find very fascinating, because obviously Fleming did not leave too many details about it. And Jeff has some very great insights into the world of Bond. I've already read the first 3 issues of Bond Origin, and I highly recommend it. So without further ado, here is Jeff Parker for The Comics of Bond. Hello, you're listening to James Bond Radio, and I am here with my guest, Jeff Parker. Jeff is the writer of Bond Origin, the new Dynamite comic series. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. Now, I'm really excited to interview you because I know Bond Origin goes into some territory that a lot of us have speculated about, like the Bond fans, especially those of us who read the Fleming books, is, there isn't that much there to mine in terms of, Bond service in World War II. So I'm really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's confining and freeing at the same time. What I have to work with from the what Fleming said.
Okay, so before we dive into Bond Origin, let's talk. Let's do the quickfire questions that we ask all our guests. So this way,
I'm always stuff. By the way,
I'm sorry.
I'm always horrible at these sort of things, but go ahead.
Don't worry. There are no wrong answers, by the way.
Just wait.
Okay, so question 1: what is your favorite Bond film?
Wow, geez. It really depends on the mood I'm in. I mean, nowadays, of course, I never get tired of Casino Royale. But if you would ask me before the Craig era, I would have probably said From Russia with Love.
That's actually my favorite film too.
I feel like him doing real spy stuff. At the beginning of the movie. He's there to assassinate somebody. It's just like, oh, okay, he's really doing his thing here.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the one story I think of those early Bonds that you can really feel like it might have happened, like so it's actually my favorite film too. And I love Casino as well, obviously. I'm sorry.
It's still one of the best fights in motion pictures.
Yeah,
when they're on the train.
That train fight is incredible. So question 002, what is your favorite Bond book?
Oh, God. See, it's been years since I read through the books, and I only recently went back and I read Man with the Golden Gun. And I know it's the easy answer, but I'll say Casino Royale, because as I remember, that one really had, I don't know, it just had everything in it. Just the mood and the tone and all the stuff you really need.
It's the one that started it all. And I actually interviewed Dennis Calero from Dynamite Comics, who did the adaptation for the graphic novel. And the graphic novel, they did a great job with that one as well.
Oh, yeah. Dennis is a great artist.
Yeah, he definitely is. I hope he does more of them, because I know they're doing Live and Let Die next. I don't think he's involved with that one, but hopefully they bring him back.
Yeah, they should. He's just right for it.
So question 003, do you have a favorite Bond girl?
Wow. Gosh, there's so many good ones. I got to go with Ursula Andress.
Okay. Yeah, that's an iconic choice right there.
I mean, just her getting out, getting the shell with the dagger on her leg and everything at the beach. It's just burned into my head. In fact, when I was writing Thunderbolts, Kev Walker and I did this one issue that just focused on the character Songbird, and she just needs to take a break from everything, and she goes to Tahiti. And we have we just pretty much replicate that scene exactly. If you go look it up, you can see where he was looking right at it, and when she gets up out of the water with that white bikini on, it's in there in my head forever.
Yeah, that's an iconic scene. Actually, I went with my son to Planet Hollywood in Orlando, and they have the bikini there. And
Really?
he had just recently watched Dr. No, and his reaction when he saw it was, "That's the bathing suit of the person who was looking for shells." That's the exact quote. I was like,
I like that.
I am a proud father at that point.
You must be proud. What a good kid.
He's 9 years old, by the way. But yeah,
he knows the important things already.
Exactly. So, question 004. Who is your favorite Bond actor?
This is the one me and my buddy Ibrahim Mustafa always team up on. Because we completely agree. Timothy Dalton.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
I just really think he was perfect for the role. He's not in good movies, but he himself is an excellent Bond. I mean, he's got everything. He's charming. He's rugged. He has menace. He's good in everything he's ever been in. But I really liked him as Bond and wish he had gotten a chance to do more.
Yeah, same here. I wish he had done a third one. He really captures the Fleming Bond. I really feel he's of all the actors, he's the closest, I think, to what Fleming envisioned in terms of his style and just the way he takes on that character.
Yeah, and when people bring up the problematic aspects of Bond, like he just uses women as shields, blah blah blah. Dalton seemed menacing and clearly into women, but he also just seemed like he genuinely cared about people too. He did a pretty neat balance of getting of kind of spanning the ages there right in the middle.
Yeah, no, he did. So further on with the quickfire questions, what is your earliest memory of Bond?
It is Dr. No. My parents, when I was really small, and this is in the 70s, they went to a drive-in theater out of town, was just showing the Bond movies on the weekends, and my dad was a huge Bond nut. And they dragged me along because it's easier than getting a babysitter. And I think they just assumed I would sleep in the back seat, but I didn't. I watched the movie, and even though from my little kid perspective, it was all about a robot dragon on the beach breathing fire, and James Bond's invincible friend Quarrel, who can be cut in the face and laugh about it.
Yeah, except he does, come to a bitter end with that same dragon.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, that is a great. So it was a drive-in theater you went to?
Yeah, it was a drive-in. That's the way to see Bond, with a big speaker hanging on your window.
I've never been to a drive-in theater at all, but if I do ever get to go to one, I hope I get to see a Bond movie that way. I'm sorry.
They're fun. It's a fun way to see a movie.
Yeah, no, I definitely. Of course, they've kind of gone by the wayside, but there are a few still around.
Yeah, sure.
So, question 006: is there a Bond location that you'd like to visit?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Geez, he goes everywhere, so this pretty much I ought to be able to just pick anywhere in the world I feel like going. Oh gosh, I wish you'd give me a list ahead of time, because that's one of the ones I'd really like to stew on some. let's see, Japan. There's a
Is Jamaica? If you have an affinity,
there's always Jamaica because of Fleming. Fleming looking around where he's living and going, perhaps Jamaica would be a good city, even though it generally makes no sense for any of these movies to be going through Jamaica. I love that though, because he just knows, well, this is a nice setting where Bond can have a great time. Africa. Let's see. Yeah, why am I so stumped on this? So it's because they're all good, and I'm having a hard time. Outer Space and Moonraker. I'd like to go there.
My wife and I have GoldenEye on our bucket list. It's crazy expensive to go there, but it's one of those things that like maybe for like our 50th anniversary we might be able to afford it.
Yeah, that would be good. Also, maybe I'll use Live and Let Die as my vacation plan, and go visit when they let's see. Where are they? Where the Gators are?
That's in New Orleans.
Yeah, that's right. They're still in New Orleans at that point. Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to New Orleans. Yeah, I'll just make it that because I'll be at the Big Easy Con this coming year, and there I will have scratched off one of my James Bond locations at this very show. I love the opening scene with the funeral march. It's just one of my favorite bits.
That's one of my favorites too. Yeah, whose funeral is this? Yours. I love that.
Yours. Stab, fall down. It's such a good bit, and it's another one of those that kind of make no sense. That they, like what a huge setup for something, but you don't care because it's so good.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it's very, well, that movie features just a lot of, contrivances that just, don't really make sense in the real world, but in that movie, it works,
I love Jeffrey Holder as Baron Samedi.
I do too. And actually, I watched Live and Let Die with my son recently too, and he wants a Baron Samedi toy. I was like, they don't make those. I'm sorry.
Yeah, makes it look. Well, they must have those little figures somewhere, but yeah, they make it look pretty commonplace in the world of the movie. and I want to go jump over a washed out pier that makes my car flip in the air. But without the slide whistle.
Without the slide whistle. Okay.
Yeah, John Barry's greatest mistake.
Yeah, he did talk
to him, not me.
Question 007, what is your favorite scene in the series?
Boy, you really have some tough ones, man. This
I know they're hard to narrow down, and obviously, sometimes your answers can change from day to day, like mine do as well.
And they do. I'm these always kill me because I'm not a superlative thinker. It's just it depends on what I'm into that week, and just something hits me. Like the fight with Bob Shaw on the train and From Russia with Love sticks with me because it's just it seems like a real fight. And it seems that way because Shaw's really like making it that way.
Yeah,
and I believe
it feels really brutal when you're watching it.
Yeah, and I had a book years ago, this thing all about Connery's movies, and there's some quotes in there where Connery was super mad about that. He did not like the way it went down. He's like, it's like Shaw's too into it and everything. But that's such a great scene. Like, great. Yeah, they're really fighting, Well, you know what, in Goldfinger, one of my favorite recurring bits is the way, if you kind of follow the little subplots, Odd Job, everything until it goes horribly wrong for him, really works out for Odd Job, kind of like he's charmed or there's some kind of little magic luck around him.
Yeah.
Because when Bond's racing in the car through the warehouse, and then he comes up to the mirror and thinks there's a car in front of him and spins and hits and knocks himself out. And Oddjob just walks in, looks at the car, looks over at the mirror, and just smiles. That's one of my favorite bits, I think. I never get tired of that. Also, when Bond's going after them and they're up in the Alps, and or Goldfinger and Oddjob just get out, and he just enjoys an apple on the side of the road while he's kind of looking out over the view.
Yeah, just enjoying the view.
It just makes him a way more interesting villain. It's like, yeah, we're just going to get out here and picnic for a few minutes, and then we'll continue on our way. Like, we're not just constantly doing evil. We got to stop and eat some apples.
There you go. All right, so the final quickfire question. What is the most Bondian thing you've ever done?
Ooh, man. You know what? I scuba dived in college.
That's
And yeah, and there is no way you can put on that scuba gear and not think about Thunderball and feel a little James Bondy. Yeah, that was maybe the coolest thing I've ever done, and I really want to get back in it because it was a good time.
Scuba diving does seem like a lot of fun. I've never been. I scuba. Someone brought their scuba gear into their pool, and I tried it out for that one time. But that's not the same thing, though. So,
even more if you can jump into the water with a knife in your teeth, then you're getting more into a Bond sort of scenario.
There you go. I'm gonna have to try that.
And then go cut somebody's little air tube or whatever they were constantly doing in that.
That might lead to some trouble.
I love the I love the album cover. And it's for the poster and the album cover is what I think.
The artwork, yeah.
Because we had it, and Bond is scuba diving around, not wearing a mask because they want to show his face. Wow, Bond doesn't even need a mask when when diving in the ocean. Everybody else has to have one.
Yeah, no, that's true. So let's talk about Bond origin. So, like I said, you're diving into a period of the literary Bond's life that, there's a lot of conjecture about. Obviously, as fans, we can speculate. There's a little bit written. I think there was one of the continuation novels that dealt a little bit with it, but not much. Not much is out there. So, what resources did you draw on to get into this project?
The Fleming estate gave me this compiled timeline of things that they considered were key moments, and it's mostly from like the last couple of novels. Fleming finally kind of decided maybe he should go back, and I don't know why he decided it, but he decided he should actually nail down some of Bond's past that he had never really dealt with. And of course, as people are quick to point out, it's very close to Fleming's past. He goes to Fett's College, drops out, goes into the war effort and everything. So that is something that we were considering. Like, all right, how do we? And I did do the time honored tradition of kind of working Fleming into the story as a character. You see him in issue 2. He's just called F, and all of his teachers are one letter initial people, which will become the standard thing in the 00 department, but to protect their identities. But anyway, they gave me this thing to go by, and it really helped. Because I was at first it was a daunting thing. It's like, all right, I've got to establish now how he gets into the war and gets through it, and we know the things we know that he has to have achieved are he's got to be fairly up in the ranks of what will become MI6, and at that point was the standard operations executive. Sorry, and he's also got to be a commander in the Navy. So, because and From Russia with Love, when they see him, everybody salutes and says Commander Bond.
Yeah.
So that's something everyone expects. And we went back and forth several times with our plans, and until everybody agreed on how we were going to do it. And they actually suggested, I believe, the Clydebank Blitz as a good catalyst that kind of brings him into the war. The timing is just right, going along with Fleming's timeline. And a lot of people don't realize Scotland was blitzed by the Nazis.
Yeah, I didn't realize it either until I read the first issue of your book. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you probably thought I was making it up, and then you go through and you get on Wikipedia and go, oh, it really happened.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Yeah, I guess that seems like an appropriate place to start it, because obviously it is Scotland. We have that connection to Bond, and obviously Fett's was a Scottish school, so it makes sense that if the Nazis did Bond part of Scotland, for the Clydebank Blitz, that Bond the literary character would have been there.
Yeah, it's only a couple hours down the road, and it was easy to think, well, how the military are always recruiting from the colleges, like, come in, join, be an officer, and this got to the other thing where Fleming had mentioned a family friend of his father, kind of helped guide James a bit and bring him into the whole operations. And that was my perfect opportunity. Like, oh, okay, well, if his dad was selling to the Navy, and this Navy man Weldon could be the person he's really kind of coming to try to keep an eye on James. And his whole thing is he actually wants to do the family was killed. They died in a ski accident,
right? Yes.
In the Alps, and when James was a bit younger. Not quite Batman age, probably about 13.
Yeah, maybe I think around 11 or 12 actually, because there was a series of young Bond books that were also authorized by the Fleming estate, and those books start around when he's 13. And then they end around like when he's like almost 15 in 1935. So I was going to ask you if you were aware of like if you were going to reference any of those prior books, the young Bond books.
I'm trying to not, but only so people don't feel like they have to track them down.
Yeah,
but I also don't want to contradict any of it, really. If people enjoy that, they're better if they all stand alone independently. Just like you don't need to know this to watch any of the movies or read the books. But if it works together, that's great.
Yeah, there wasn't. I think in issue 2, there was a mention of Aunt Charmaine. When he's writing to Commander Weldon from the training, there is like a mention of his aunt, who obviously was a featured character in the prior books. So I mean there is that connection. We don't quite know when Aunt Charmaine dies, because I think Fleming mentioned that she did die at some point, but I'm not sure if it happened like during the war or after, or afterwards when he's a 00 already. But do you plan to feature are we going to see Aunt Charmaine perhaps at some point in your book?
Yes, she actually shows up in a few issues.
Okay, cool.
Not in a few, but in a few issues later she shows up, is what I'm saying. It's not a very big part, but she's there, and James still checks in on her. So that was a nice thing. Darn it, I had a thought there and I completely flew out of my head. I'm trying to I was going.
You mentioned Ian Fleming's publications. How involved were they in the creative process? I know you mentioned the timeline that they gave you. Did they they suggested the Clydebank Blitz as a starting point? Are they kind of involved like on an issue by issue level, or do they kind of leave you to kind of do your thing?
Yeah, they're fairly involved. They don't want me. I don't know. Like Bond's mustache phase or whatever I might come up with, but they read through it and they come back with their notes all the time. It was just like anything when you're doing a licensed property. It's more notes at the beginning than later on, because at that point you've kind of clued into, okay, here's what they're going to want and what they're going to like, and sometimes there's a fair amount of rewriting to go along with them, and but then like not long ago, I turned in this one where Bond goes to Lisbon, and literally the only note they sent back was cracking, and I was like, wow. I was so happy. I was like, what boy? Not only did I not really get any notes, I just got a one word great note, and I was very happy with that. So I think we've hit a nice little spot where we're all finally comfortable. um, but it's none of their notes have been unreasonable at all. It's exactly the kind of thing you would expect. I mean, it's you never know. They may end up using some of this stuff in a movie, so they want to make sure it goes along with what they've been doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. The third issue, which I just read and just came out as of this interview time, we find Bond on a submarine, and he's a lieutenant, and that got me really excited. And it's probably the most suspenseful and thrilling issue so far of the story. How did that come about? And like the collaboration between you and the artist Bob Q, like there were moments where it's very tense and lots of action, but there are also silent, like quiet moments that add to the tension. So can you maybe describe for me how you make those scenes work in a comic?
Well, it's tricky too, because not only is it a Bond thing, it's a submarine adventure, and that's a whole other thing. I wanted and I do this. We have this coming up more where you'll get to see Bond in the war, and it obviously can't be all about James. It's like it's World War II. It's the biggest thing to ever happen on the planet, the biggest conflict, and and James doesn't go kill Hitler or anything. Spoilers. But it's also the ultimate proving ground for somebody who would be James Bond. It's like if you can survive the whole war, that's not bad. That's an excellent gauntlet to run there. And for that, I just did a lot of research on the submarines. Bob, Quinn, and I went back and forth with just finding it, whatever we were finding out, sharing it. Trying to figure out what they would have been up against fighting the German cruiser, and how mines worked. I had to read a lot about mines.
That was particularly interesting. Yeah, it's like it's something that obviously it's kind of a spoiler a little bit. Yeah, it's I wasn't expecting that. And it was just I mean, it starts off with they see a German cruiser, and they want to take it down, and then they get a bomber attacks them out of nowhere, and it's a really thrilling issue. I mean, you had me. I didn't want it to end, so kudos on that one.
I can't wait to see what you think as that story continues, because they get more in depth with fighting that little setup in that channel. And I liked showing that Bond gets to see some authority figures who actually know what they're doing. It would get annoying if Bond was the only person who was any good at anything really fast. He's still like 17 or 18 at this point. So, he gets to see Captain White being a pretty good submarine captain as they're kind of playing that cat and mouse game of trying to figure out when they can surface. They're taking on water. All kinds of stuff is happening that they've got to navigate, literally. And and all James can do in a lot of ways is just shut up and watch. He gets to act more in the later part of the story, obviously, but this is one of those times where Bond's kind of there to learn.
Yeah, I think each of the issues, actually, you see a little bit of him learning, and you see him kind of developing as a character. There's a journey that you could obviously have him going on from issue to issue, and you could really appreciate that as someone who's a fan of the character. Just wanting to see how that character develops. From the very beginning of his naval career and his introduction to intelligence, and then obviously are you going to go all the way up to his recruitment into the 00 section, or does the story stop at some point before that?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure exactly. You can never tell, like, how these things work, like how well the book sells, everything. We're definitely going all the way through 1941,
Okay.
and the ideal plan is to take it year by year until the war's over. Well, it may not go that way. We may abbreviate some of the war, but yeah, and then uh, and ultimately just stay the course till we get to the part where they would actively recruit for the elite double O's. But right now we're just focusing on trying to get him through the war.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a very beginning.
There's so much going on.
Yeah.
And we've floated lots and lots of operations he could be in. We try to base it on real things, not make up. You'll notice there's not going to be a lot of gadgets. And what little type gadgetry he uses is it's all stuff completely that people would have used at the time. It's not sci-fi at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's more a precursor to the Fleming books, which didn't really feature that kind of much of that kind of stuff. It was really the movies that kind of made the popularized the gadgets. So yeah.
Cars.
Yeah, the cars and stuff. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't mind seeing a nice car chase at some point, but yeah, it's really interesting, and so I also see that you have an exclusive in Playboy magazine. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came about?
I don't know who set it up, but I thought it was perfect. Because Playboy had published Fleming's own fiction back in the day, and so it was like Bond has always had a special place in Playboy, and of course in Her Majesty's Secret Service you see him actually looking at a Playboy, kind of as a little tip of the hat to that whole relationship. The greatest moment for Lazenby in film, and. And so anyway, but they told us, like you've got 6 pages. And I'm like, God, 6 pages? Come on, man! Like, what? You didn't expect us to do it in 1 page, but whatever. We have 6 pages, and so I worked on it, and then I felt I came up with something that really got across a quick mission that would make sense for Bond. It's really supposed to be set in Holland, but at some point someone chimed in and said the location just didn't reflect part of the train tracks. And I didn't argue it. I didn't want to say like, well, have you been on every square mile of the train tracks? It was like, you do see the windmills early in the story, but it doesn't matter. We ended up moving it in text to Belgium. But he's there. He's dropped off to help a resistance cell that wants to take out a supply train for the Nazis. And Bond, as you saw in issue 2, was trained in making explosives. So he gets a little bit special agent quality just for this story, where he's kind of dry. And that sort of happens in our regular series too. But it's a little more in line. It makes a little more sense probably with the way things would have actually worked. You get obviously a whole ship can't just go take Bond somewhere, but it's one of those things where it's convenient. We're going to be in this area for a while. Yes, we'll lend you this officer of ours who for some reason knows how to make bombs with nitro, and because the captain's not always in on like what his training was. He's not really told that much about it. He just knows he's supposed to allow it and listen to high command when they tell him they need James to do something. So James meets up with this cell and they take on a train, and immediately everything goes wrong, and James has to come up with another way to take the train out. And to me, that's the essence of him. The whole people always ask like, well, how can you, if it's set so early, how can you make him James Bond? He doesn't do his 007 stuff. He doesn't have his Beretta or his Aston Martin or any of that. and at first I thought that was going to be a problem too, but actually it's been nothing but good because it's forced us to just strip down. Like, no, what is he without all of these things and his cute catchphrases? And it's like ultimately we decided it's just that he's so incredibly resilient and dogged in his pursuit of his goal that he fails a lot, but he never ever stops, and that's kind of a constant thing in all the movies too.
Yeah.
He just he gets kicked off, but it doesn't matter. He's just going to find a way through there, and we actually got to do that in the 6-page story, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and you got to see him be a little bit of a ladies' man as well. So there's always that.
It was Playboy. It's not like we really couldn't leave that out. Like I know the audience. It's like it's like it would have been weird if there hadn't been a bit of time for romance. And still, we got it all in 6 pages. I'm very proud of that.
That is very impressive. And then I think in issue 2, he has a languages teacher. Has a little bit of a flirting thing going on between them there. So yeah. Whenever people talk about we want Bond to be kind of stripped down to the basics, you still have to have that kind of charming lover man quality to Bond as well.
Oh yeah.
So I'm glad you guys included that.
It's central to his character. You can't leave it out. He doesn't always have to be finding time for ladies, but you can't not have him not care.
Exactly.
In my sense, it's sort of a survival thing with him. He's just like he never knows when he's going to die. So he tends to try to live life to the fullest.
So can you talk about the team that you're working with, collaborating to bring Bond Origin to life?
Yeah, well, mostly Nate Cosby, our editor, is the one who put me and Bob Quinn together. And Bob's amazing. He's originally he worked in video games for years as an artist. And lately he just suddenly decided, nope, I want to do comics now. And he is completely jumped over. He's been doing the Lone Ranger book too, and a lot of other stuff that's going to be announced probably in the next few months. And boy, he's great because this is the kind of stuff that if you didn't bring a little bit of cartooning life to it, it could, because of the realism of it, it could get really dry. And somehow he manages to pump a bunch of life. What I like is, and you ought to get him on the show at some point. He went back to the books trying to figure out what Bond would look like, and went with Fleming's initial description of Hoagie Carmichael.
Yeah, I noticed that, and that's always an interesting way to go. And I think that was a good choice on his part. He does. Whenever you see like a visualization, any kind of visualization of Bond, or when they bring up, these different comics, it's always interesting to see what choices they make to make, what Bond should look like. So he does.
He's got a gaunt face.
Yeah.
And I love that look for him. It's really, really grown on me. Sorry.
That's all right. So is Bond Origin going beyond the 6 issues, or is?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'm about to write issue 12. So yeah. So we know it's at least doing that first year, which is, in comics you don't get that many guarantees on anything. Even when a big company announces something, generally they only have approved 5 or 6 issues of anything. But yeah, we've actually already drawn most of it too. So, and it just gets better and better. I know it sounds like I'm just tooting our horn here, but everyone really stepped up. Simon Boland does great stuff with the lettering and the sound effects. It's so good.
Okay, so I think this interview will probably come out like around the middle of December, which I think is when issue 4 will come out. Can you give us a little bit of a teaser for issue 4?
It is, yes. Well, we're gonna that submarine's coming to the surface,
Yeah.
and we're going to get to see Bond actually go into action on an island, and have to improvise because they're going to be man, it's tough to not spoil it. But you're going to see Bond put in a situation where it doesn't fall under anything any of his superiors told him to do, and he's got to just decide. And this is where you start to see how big his imagination is when he realizes, wait, we could strike a blow here, or we could really, really strike a blow if we take this a little farther. And again, it's the kind of thing I think that defines his character as I like to see it. And I wish I could give you more specifics without messing it up.
Okay. So are there any other projects you'd like to promote? And, anything else that you're working on you want our audience to know about?
Everything else is to be announced at this point. So, I'm trying to think. Wait, I guess I've still got Archie Batman 66 still on shelves. If you want to check that out, that's a lot of fun and something you can give to a kid, as I did at Halloween.
I might have to get that for my son.
Yeah. Also, and if he hasn't read the Future Quest stuff I did at DC, push that on him too, because that's all ages in the sense of a Pixar all ages, where you can enjoy it and he'll be able to enjoy it. Nothing gory, but definitely a lot of danger there.
Cool. So where can people find you on social media?
I'm always babbling and answering questions on Twitter at Jeff Parker, JEFF. And my website is jeffparkerwrites.com. And you can go there and you can sign up for a newsletter, which I need to get better about sending out. And I'll let you know when issues are coming out and what projects are happening, and try to post I'm going to try to post more process stuff next year and start putting up. I used to be good about, on my old website, I would put up scripts, because a lot of people like to see how the scripts break down and compare them to the comics. So I'll try to start doing that again too.
Yeah, that's always fascinating. I think some other comic writers sometimes put those out, and they're always interesting to go through, because for those of us who don't really always follow comics or haven't gotten into comics, it's always interesting to see how how everything comes together.
Yeah, it's I even things I don't plan on, fields I don't plan on working in. I like process enough that I just love reading stuff like that anyway. So I assume a lot of people are like me and just like seeing how the sausage is made.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us, Jeff. I really appreciate your time, and I hope our listeners, definitely, if you haven't checked out Bond Origin yet, you should. Issues 1 to 3 are out at this time, but I think issue 4 will be out by the middle of December, when this interview will be out. So, definitely go on and check it out. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to my interview with Jeff Parker. I highly recommend Bond Origin. I think Jeff and his creative team are doing some great work. The first 3 issues are already out, and they're great. The 4th issue comes out on December 12th. And don't forget that you can get an exclusive Bond Origin story in the November-December issue of Playboy magazine. So if you want to pick up an issue of Playboy magazine and read an exclusive Bond Origin story, well, there's nothing wrong with that. So definitely check out Bond Origin. In all seriousness, I think they are doing some great work there with these comics. So I've been Jack Lugo. You could find me on Twitter at JackLugo1. And this has been the Comics of Bond. I'll see you next time. Bye.